Okay, so question number 4 is another slope problem. It's actually the last questions that we did right before we were done with in-person school. So if we take a look at this problem, give me a second, get this away. Okay, so if we take a look at this problem, it's asking us to find the rates of change in distance with respect to time. So the first thing you want to do when you see this problem is take a look at how many different lines you have. So we have a line from A to B, B to C, and C to D. So we're going to calculate the slope of all of those lines. So if we take a look from A to B goes from minute 0 to minute 20. So that's how I'm going to label my first calculation. So minute 0 to minute 20. So when I look at that, we want to then identify what these points are. So point A is going to be 0, 0, because we know that's the origin. Point B is going to be over 20 and up 20, so that's point 20, 20. So when I go to do this calculation, I'm going to find the slope between these 2 points. So we know again that slope is always going to be rise over run. So rise over run is the same thing as saying subtract the y's. And the bottom, we're subtracting the x values. So the y values are always the second point. The x values are always the first point. So for minute 0 to 20, that would mean that on the top, we're subtracting 20 minus 0. And on the bottom, the x values are actually the same thing. They're also 20 minus 0. So to get our first slope, that would equal 20 over 20, which simplifies to 1. And then we always take our y value per the x value. So it's going to be kilometers, which is the km. But this is a text box. Km per minute. So kilometers per minute. That will be our first line here from A to B. So then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. So the next one is from B to C. So that's from minute 20 to minute 80 is point C. So our next one will be from minute 20 to 80. Oh, and then we have to go ahead and find out what C is. So C, the point is over 80. We went all the way over to 80. And then we go up and we go to find it. This is between 40 and 60, but we know here that we're counting by tens. So this will actually be 50. So the point here at C is 80, 50. So when I go ahead and do my subtracting, on the top, we're doing the 50 because that's the second one, minus the 20. And on the bottom will be the first value, so 80 minus the 20. So when I go ahead and simplify that, I get 30 over 60, which when you divide those, you get 0.5. And then the label actually stays the same for all of these. It'll be kilometer per minute. So that will be this line from B to C here. And then our last one that we have to calculate is from C to D. So if we take a look from C to D, that's minute 80 here, and D is at minute 100. So it's minute 80 to 100. That's our last line. And then to calculate this, we do need to know what point D is. So that's over 100, comma, this is up 80. So we're going to go ahead and do that same subtracting. So the y's are on top. So that would mean we have to do 80 because it's the second one, minus 50 over 100 minus 80. We have the 100 and we have the 80 here. So when I go ahead and simplify that, we get 30 over 20, which when you divide that, we get 1.5, and then our labels stay the same here. It'll be kilometers per minute. So I know that's a lot of work there, but the first thing, again, you want to make sure you figure out how many lines. So we have from A to B, B to C, and C to D. So this is A to B, B to C, C to D. Then you want to put the points on the graph so that you can see what each of these points are. And then to find each of the slopes, you subtract the y values, so like 50 minus 20, and then on the bottom you subtract the x values. And then you would just divide to get your final answer. So these would be our 3 different slopes for this graph. And then part B says determine the time interval during which the distance showed the greatest rate of change. So if I take a look here, we're just looking for the greatest slope. So if we have 1.5 and 1.5, we know 1.5 is bigger than all of those. So my answer to that is going to be whatever the time interval is. So it's minute 80 to 100. And then if we're looking for the least rate of change, we're looking for the smallest one. So 0.5 will be smaller than 1 and 1.5. So that's minute 20 to 80. So that's how you do number 4. I know there's a lot of work that goes into this, but the big idea with number 4 is just put as much work as you can on the paper. If it's not completely correct, you can still get a lot of partial credit. So even if you're a little bit confused here, try your best, and you can always email me for help on the test question. So that will be our answer for number 4.